And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Tuesday evening. We finally got some more activity today. Juan Soto signed late Sunday night, and now we're finally seeing the dam starting to crack. Max Fried decides to go to the New York Yankees, filling a little bit of the void left by Juan Soto. 8 years, $218 million. The Texas Rangers acquire, or at least bring back, Nathan Eovaldi. 3 years, $75 million. Andres Jimenez from the Cleveland Guardians was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Spencer Horwitz. A couple prospects on either side of that deal as well. A little bit of a surprise, that the first surprise trade, if you will. But the biggest surprise so far is that the Red Sox and Orioles still have not acted when it comes to free agency as far as making a major addition to their rotations. Two of the biggest question marks we came into this offseason with. Are the Orioles going to be able to retain Corbin Burnes? That's number one priority. If I'm a member of that Orioles front office right now, I have to get that one done, because now that Fried is off the board, who I believe was the Red Sox top target, sounds like they weren't necessarily there for the years. I'm curious to see how much further they're willing to go for Corbin Burnes, who I believe is the better pitcher. Both pitchers, though, were very good. They were going to do very well in free agency, but they have to get something done. There's not exactly another Corbin Burnes on the market. Blake Snell is already signed. The next best pitcher that's left to sign is probably Sean Manaea. Nick Pivetta is in that conversation. The only one left outside of the Burnes conversation that doesn't have compensation tied to him is Andrew Heaney. That's a big step down from Max Fried and Corbin Burnes. Don't get me wrong, Heaney was a good pitcher last year and has great stuff, but he's not exactly the number one in anybody's rotation going into a pennant race. So we'll see what happens here, but exciting news from today's Major League Baseball winter meetings. Let's dig into all the latest. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We're going to move quickly here in the first half hour of the show. I really want to get into, I'm going to go ahead and label it a rant. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with the national media and with major national and local media, in addition to these Major League Baseball teams. We'll get into that one here in just a moment. Welcome in JG, Mark, Ethan, John. Appreciate you guys joining us once again. Having a good day. Unfortunately, I was called into work this morning, so I wasn't able to be available this morning, but luckily, nothing really happened. Only later in the day did we finally get the dam to break with Max Fried. I put out a couple of videos. Fried and Eovaldi. Had some great responses from you guys in the community. So thank you guys for bearing with me on a slow news day in the first half of the day. But we were here for you when the news finally did start breaking. But we'll have the day off tomorrow. There is no question about that one. We will be live. We'll have a couple of different lives during the day. And then, of course, our wrap-up at the end of the day. So congratulations on the Eovaldi signing. Exactly. I couldn't agree more on that one. A little bit rich for my blood, but for the market, for where the starting pitching is going, 3 for 25 per sounds about right for where Eovaldi was ultimately going to end up, especially after you saw the numbers for Kikuchi and Severino. He was going to get 3 years. It's just a matter of whether it was going to be 23, 24, or 25 per. I think the market indicated that it was going to get to 25, especially with the interest from those Northeast teams. And so the Texas Rangers went ahead and locked up their guy before another starting pitcher came off the block. And then you're really scrambling to try to re-sign Andrew Heaney or I keep trying to call him Nathaniel Lowe before you sign Nathan Eovaldi. Jock's market looking like 2 for 35 now that Conforto got 1 for 17. I don't think Jock is nearly worth that. I don't think his market is quite at that number either. I think the additional year does help his overall value as far as the total value of the contract, absolutely, but I don't think he's going to get 17 per. I think Conforto is a little bit of a one-off there with the Dodgers, but for me, I would say Jock probably does 2 for 30, 2 for 28, somewhere in that range. I'm still out at that number. For Texas, I'm really hoping they don't get Jock Peterson. I do want a hitter, don't get me wrong, but I would steer clear of Jock Peterson. I just don't think he's going to be a great fit with the way this roster is currently set up. I would rather go a different direction. So, there are other options out there on the free agent market that are going to be less than $10 million per that I would be more keen on going after. We'll dig into some of those names later on in the show. Mark, I'd be a little more excited as a Jays fan about Jimenez if it was 2022. We'll see. Couldn't agree more. Even the Guardians front office had gotten a little bit lukewarm on him over the last couple of years. They had tried to trade him a couple of different times. There were some connections to the LA Dodgers a couple of years ago after 2022 specifically. Guardians were already willing to part with him at that point, but they decided to hold on to him, and now they actually kind of reset their clock here a little bit. I like to trade a little bit more here for the Cleveland Guardians. They get off of the money of Jimenez, they get a younger player, longer-term control, and now they don't necessarily have to trade a Lane Thomas or a Josh Naylor to bring in some salary. So they offload a little bit of the money here with Jimenez. Really like the deal for the Guardians. On the Blue Jays side of things, this is what I was kind of worried about, is that they would kind of sell out for 1 year. Sure, Jimenez is a better improvement over what they had over Spencer Horwitz, but I would say the longer future of Horowitz was a better long-term play for them. They're not necessarily going to win the World Series. Horowitz wasn't a negative piece on your roster, but for me, I think Jimenez, is a little bit of a risk for this team. Now they should have gone out there, and spent at the top of the market, and they still may for an Alex Bregman type to kind of really impact that lineup. But for me, this is a move that speaks a little bit of desperation that their targets in free agency aren't coming to fruition. They're having a difficult time getting somebody to agree to a deal with them. And I don't really like this trade from their perspective. I could be proven wrong. Maybe Jimenez gets back to being the player he once was. But I think this is overall a net negative for the Blue Jays here. For the Guardians, I only see the upside. You're getting a cheaper, younger, longer-term controlled player, for relatively similar impact in your everyday lineup. I don't see really where the negative comes in on the Guardians. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, you're losing out on the long-term cost control of a young player. You're taking a risk here on a player who's having a little bit of a downturn in his career from what you had once expected him to be. Sure, he might get there, but he's going to be a little bit more expensive already than what you had already planned on having with Horowitz there. But I think this is a little bit of a miss here by the Blue Jays front office. So, maybe they'll surprise us, get things turned around here the rest of this offseason, but this is, to me, speaks a little bit of desperation that things aren't going their way with the negotiations that they're having on the free agent market. John, I'm glad to hear our Eovaldi signing. What's next? Okay, so we'll start here with a little bit of the Texas Rangers stuff. Rangers were looking at starting pitching first and foremost. They had really kicked the tires on both Eovaldi and Max Fried. They wanted to get somebody in that around that $23 to $27 million average annual value as far as a starter. Somebody you could clearly lock in as your number 2 behind Jacob deGrom on opening day. Eovaldi clearly fits that description. The tenure that he already had there with Texas has been fantastic. Help you win a World Series. And so I think he was the better signing. Definitely a shorter term signing Fried is probably, I would say he's definitely the better pitcher at this point than Nathan Eovaldi. But I would rather have gone the shorter term deal here for Texas because now, with Eovaldi in the fold for 3 years, both the DeGrom and Eovaldi deals will come off the books at the same time. You weren't necessarily going to flip Eovaldi here in the next year or two anyway. So the third year was a little bit of a bugaboo for me, but the way the market had really gone, you knew he was going to get it anyway. There's really no quibbling about that at this point. Sure, he might have gotten 2 years at the outset of free agency, but when Kikuchi gets 3 years, Severino gets 3 years, Eovaldi is a better pitcher than both of those guys. He was going to get 3 years. So there's no real argument here from the Rangers side of things. Really like the starting pitcher. They still have a little bit of money. They're said to be looking for another starting pitcher, a few relievers. They need multiple back there and a bat. They already got their catcher done. They got their number 2 starter done. But they got those other priorities that they're going to have to figure out. And then, of course, go to the trade market. So what's next? Local reporters, this is kind of the bone I have to pick, are saying they now can turn their attention to the bullpen. No, that's not where their attention is going. They're still looking for bullpen, sure, but they're also looking for another starting pitcher. They're looking for another bat as well. They're not just looking for a bullpen arm right now and saying the heck with all these other options on the market. That's not where they're going. I'm looking at you, Jeff Wilson. I was watching your DLLS, live anyway, that you had for the emergency pod just before we came on here, and local reporters for the Texas Rangers tend to downplay things anyway. I get that. They want to set a realistic expectation, keep things in line with what they've come to experience with the Texas Rangers front office. I get all of that. You want to have professional journalism, not throw wild speculation around. I get all of that as well. But for me, the front office, specifically Bruce Bochy, the manager of this team, was on MLB Network today with Greg Amsinger, and he said specifically, we're looking at starting pitchers, not one but two. We're looking at bullpen help. We lost 3 high-leverage guys out of the bullpen, and we're looking at a bat. We already got our shopping list done at catcher. That was the shopping list. That was the report we had from Bruce Bochy, the manager himself. Now, sure, the front office is the one that's going to try to negotiate these deals and get these things done, absolutely. But Bruce Bochy does set the tone for the organization from the managerial standpoint. Chris Young does that from the front office. Those two have worked really well since they've come together in Texas, and that's where I have the issue with local media and national media, because they're trying to hone in on a narrative that the Rangers don't necessarily want to go outside of necessarily that narrative. They believe they're going, point A to point B, point C. They can do more things than, they can walk and chew gum at the same time. They also have other priorities than just a bullpen guy. So, to say that they're just focusing on bullpen or just that's their next highest priority, I think is a little bit disingenuous. I think that's where I have a little bit of a bone to pick with the local media, is that they're not reporting things that are easily right in front of them, like Bruce Bochy coming on the air with MLB Network and having that report. It's in Dallas. The winter meetings are here in Dallas, so it's not exactly like you're having to go out of your way to find this information either. And I'm not saying they're trying to conceal it or hold back on their reporting, but to a certain extent, I do believe that they're restricting the full impact of the news that's out there. What I mean by that is, instead of saying, these are the 3 or 4 top priorities for the Texas Rangers, they're putting their own spin as to what they would put as their next piece. I get that. But there is still more priorities out there than that. So the other bone I have to pick is with the actual teams themselves. Looking at the New York Yankees specifically, looking at the Boston Red Sox, looking at the Baltimore Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays. This goes back to the Jimenez trade that we just saw with the Blue Jays. Where are we going with the money out there? There's a lot of money being thrown, absolutely. But where are these teams when they absolutely have a top priority on the board? The Yankees already have several starters in their rotation. Why is Fried going for 27 per when the Red Sox need a number 1 in that rotation? I thought there would have been no question that Fried would probably have gotten a little bit higher AAV from the Boston Red Sox than he would have gotten from the Yankees. Now, sure, he may have gone to the Yankees. That may have been his true destination where he wanted to play. I get that. But where's the reports of, hey, $30 million a year was on the table for the same length of time? 8 for $240. Where's that reporting out there? Where's the report that said the Orioles were heavy in that net mix as well for the same numbers? $30 million on a team that's cash-strapped looking for an ace? That would be a palatable number, whereas Burns is probably going to be a little bit even higher than that $30 million number. That's where I have the bone to pick with these teams. Why are we not investing in our starting rotation? We've known the issue for the Red Sox for years is that they've tried to do things the A's and Rays way. That hasn't worked. They told us this offseason that because the fans were clamoring for it, this method really hadn't worked out, and so they were going to try to turn the page. Well, where's the turning of the page? Sure, they bring in Aroldis Chapman, but it's more of the same from the Red Sox. It's more of the same from the Baltimore Orioles. It's more of the same for the Toronto Blue Jays. They're in there for all these top guys, and then swing and miss, and then settle on an out-of-nowhere trade for Jimenez from the Guardians. That's where my bone to pick is with these teams. Where is the accountability, with those front offices to try to go out there and get these deals done? Now, sure, like I said, Fried may have had his mind already made up that he wanted to go to New York and he just wanted to get the best deal that he could by involving these other teams. I get that. But there's more than just Max Fried on the market. So I'm going to hold a little bit back here and say that there's still Burns out there. There's still the possibility of a Garrett Crochet trade. There's other pieces that they could add here as far as starting rotation pieces. But looking at the Boston Red Sox, my fear is that they're not going to get anybody at the top of the market. That they're going to be left with an Andrew Heaney, maybe the return of a Nick Pivetta. Sean Manaea is still out there, I get that. But there's not the high impact that a Max Fried or a Corbin Burns had, and I worry that the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Blue Jays are going to miss on their guy and be left holding a bag full of cash with nobody taken. We saw what that looked like for years with the San Francisco Giants. Just ask Giants fans in our chat how well that worked out for them. To miss on all these top flight free agents because you were a little stingy with a couple of extra dollars. It's food for thought there when you're considering how things had not worked out for Farhan Zaidi out there. They weren't willing to go to the number for Manny Machado. They weren't willing to go to the number for Bryce Harper. They weren't willing to go to the number for Xander Bogaerts. All these guys had interest in going to San Francisco on one level or another, and ultimately they chose not to invest the dollars. Now, sure, the top flight free agent that they were interested in bringing in and had the money for was Aaron Judge. Hal Steinbrenner picked up the phone and was able to negotiate the deal. He wanted to remain a Yankee. I get that. You're not going to get every single one of them. But there is opportunities to improve your roster every single offseason without having to trade your minor league prospects. It's just about whether or not you have the cojones to go out there and spend the money to get the job done. In Texas, credit Chris Young for going out there and spending the money. He got a World Series win out of it. Not every team wins a World Series every year. Not every free agent investment works. But Chris Young has found a way to make it work in Texas. My question for those other GMs, why haven't you had similar results, at least getting to a postseason, or at least signing some of these top-level free agents? Because now I have to start wondering about the long-term viability of the Baltimore Orioles if they don't add a top-level starting pitcher. Same thing with the Boston Red Sox. They've got some good young pieces coming, but if they don't supplement that rotation, it's going to all be for naught. They're going to fail to make the postseason, and then we're going to be talking once again about the possibility of a Devers trade because they can't get over the hump. That's the issues that I have with these teams that continually miss in free agency. Jonathan, welcome in. Fried is a good pitcher when healthy, but 8 years for an often injured pitcher is a gamble. If Fried's get 8 years, Burns is surely going to get 9. I don't think so. I think Fried got a lower AAV, is pretty much why it went to 8 years. It was lowering the overall impact of the deal. $27 million in this day and age of baseball is not that big of money. Think back to the time when the Tigers signed Jordan Zimmerman for a 5-year deal at $100 million. That was $20 million a year. That was, 7, 8, 9 years ago? Somewhere in that range. I want to say 9 years at this point. That deal wasn't exactly great either. But ultimately, they still had the money to go out there and spend on Javi Baez and others. That deal didn't work out great either, but you look at how there's money in the game. There's so much money to go out there and spend on these top-level free agents, and I don't buy it when these owners come out and say, oh, we don't have the money to get these things done. You told us. You were the ones that told us you were looking for a starting pitcher. We didn't put those words in your mouth. You said we want to try to add to our starting rotation. Orioles, they have yet to do so. Red Sox have yet to do so. Yankees said all out during the year that we were going to have to see if we could get an extension done with Soto. We're not sure if we're going to be able to come to an agreement. And ultimately, they found the money to come up with a really good offer to Soto. He opted to go to the Mets instead. Where did you get that money from? It's not just going to disappear. Fried is a good option here to fill the void left by Soto, but they're going to have to do more. They're going to make the rotation a big point of their team, but they're going to have to add 2 impact bats to that lineup, not just league average players. So Alex Bregman, Christian Walker, a corner outfielder like Teoscar Hernandez, or Anthony Santander. That's where the Yankees need to be pivoting next, is adding to that offense. Ethan, Max Kepler to Texas, 1 year, 10. Possibly. I don't think he's a great fit for that spot in the lineup, though. I'd rather go with what we have on the roster than a Max Kepler. But that level of deal sounds about right unless it's for a significant improvement at that left field DH spot. JRP, hi. I didn't know you talked about the Orioles, but are they trying to get a pitcher? They're trying to get 2 starting pitchers. They need to get a couple of, a number 1 in that rotation and a number 2. Texas, for all their issues with injuries and bloated contracts on their rotation, they've invested in that starting rotation. They're going to have a rotation that features DeGrom when healthy at the number 1, Eovaldi's in the number 2. I would say number 3 is Tyler Mahle, and then you get into the question marks. Do the young guys really step up with Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter? Do you put John Gray in the bullpen, or do you leave him in the rotation? Do you re-sign Andrew Heaney to eat some innings? Do you have Cody Bradford break the rotation or break into the rotation at the start of the year? Dane Dunning, is he the long relief guy out of the bullpen? Then, of course, the remaining pieces in your minor league system. Owen White, what does his future look like for that rotation as well? But these teams that are looking for some starting pitching really missed an opportunity to try to get Nathan Eovaldi or a Max Fried. The average annual value of Fried's deal, $27 million, to me, is still a little bit on the light side. That's why I think there's a missed opportunity here for teams like the Orioles, Red Sox, Blue Jays, pretty much any team that was looking for starting pitching. $27 million isn't a whole heck of a lot for a starting pitcher in today's day and age, especially given the track record of success. And I get the argument that some of the national media has as far as his availability, injuries, etc. A couple of forearm injuries are something to think about. But look how many innings he's thrown over the last 5 years. That's the number I'll point to as well. He's been very durable when it comes to being able to eat innings. And those are productive innings as well. Getting him out of Atlanta, I think, is actually going to help his ability to stay healthy in addition to that. I'm curious to see, what he looks like in a Yankees rotation. Does he slot in as the number 2 or 3 in that rotation? But I think that's a terrific signing for that rotation. One of my favorite pitchers in the game right now is Max Fried. I'm really optimistic for what he's going to be looking like in a Yankees uniform. Not a huge Yankees fan, but excited for the player and the deal that he got. As an O's fan, I was happy when they got new owners, but it still feels like they're not serious enough. That's kind of my worry right now, is that they're going to spend all this prospect capital to bring in Corbin Burns, and then they let him walk after 1 year. This is a lot like what we just saw with Juan Soto. They spent the prospect capital to bring in Juan Soto. He leaves after 1 year, and now they're left with a diminished farm system because of the trade they had to make. They would have had a really good rotation, or a nice piece in that rotation with Michael King. And then, of course, several pieces that also went to San Diego in return. Same thing here with the Orioles, is that they spent all this spent all this capital here to bring in Burns. Are you about to do the same thing for Crochet, and then Crochet leaves in 2 years? Those are some big questions that the Orioles are going to have to answer. Welcome in, Sarah. Appreciate you joining us once again. A little bit of Cardinals news for you is that the Yankees seem to be on the up and up anyway with Nolan Arenado, so we could see a deal there. Love your Fried signing Eovaldi back with your Rangers. Good moves. I like both of those moves, honestly. I don't think either one of them are overpays. I get the national media saying, hey, it's 8 years for a starting pitcher, but he's young enough to where the money's going to work out, and it's mainly tacking on a couple of extra years to lower that overall average annual value for luxury tax, competitive balance tax, reasons. I get why they made it 8 years. So, take the 8 years, take 2 years off of that, you're probably getting around 39 million in average annual value. That's kind of what the deal really is, but instead you're getting him for 8 years. You're getting for the complete rest of his prime, and then a few of the back end years there as well. But the reason why they do it is to lower the tax burden on themselves. John, Corbin Burns, 30 with a 7.2 WAR, or Jack Flaherty, 29 at a 5 WAR. Which one is more realistic for the Rangers at this stage in their respective careers? Neither one. I would love to have had Corbin Burns. If they didn't bring in, say, like Eovaldi back, I think there would have been some interest in touching base once again with Corbin Burns. If they hadn't brought in John Gray and all those other arms that they have brought in over the last couple of years, I think we would be really front and center in that Corbin Burns argument. Same thing with Jacob deGrom. If we hadn't spent on Jacob deGrom, I guarantee you the Texas Rangers would be the number 1 bidder for Corbin Burns. But as it stands, it's a little bit of a luxury. They have some young arms coming, and they have depth now in the starting rotation, and yet they're still looking for another starter in that $10 to $12 million range. Hello, it's a reunion for Andrew Heaney on the horizon. I'm telling you that right now. Unless another team is willing to pay more to bring him in. Say like the Baltimore Orioles are looking for a number 2. If they're somehow able to retain Corbin Burnes, maybe they give Andrew Heaney 15 to 17 per. That'd be an incredible number for him. But the way that the market is shaping up, there's so few great starting pitchers or even good starting pitchers left that they're going to get overpaid here. You look at Kikuchi and Severino, those are seen as pretty great deals for those pitchers. I would argue that if those guys are getting $22, $21 million per season, that Heaney's probably worth 15 to 17 on the open market. But we shall see. Yankees fan for the AL2. It's a tough one to square for me that you're a Cardinals and Yankees fan, Sarah. It's tough for me to see a Cardinals fan being a Yankees fan. Maybe you just like the blue bloods in baseball, I guess. Maybe that's where you get it from. It's just hard to square that the Cardinals, the epitome of the good guys, quote unquote, in Major League Baseball, are squared against the evil empire in the New York Yankees. It's a really interesting squaring of the fandom there. But maybe you'll get to cheer for one of your former Cardinals moving on to the New York Yankees this offseason. Orioles need to bring back Burnes. They would be so dumb to let him walk. From your lips to their ears. I mean, Burnes is far and away the best starting pitcher left on the market, trade or otherwise. You can talk about Crochet all you want. I want Corbin Burnes. You can talk all you want about Andrew Heaney, Sean Manaea, Nick Pivetta. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of others. Give me Corbin Burnes. And you already had him in your camp. You already know he's got the stuff. He's still a Cy Young capable starting pitcher. Nobody else on the market. Nobody. Sorry, Garrett Crochet. I don't think you're ever going to win a Cy Young. Nobody else on the market is going to be at that level. Jack Flaherty is the other one I'm thinking of. Now, they had both of those guys in their camp. They saw how they worked out. Flaherty, of course, flamed out. But, they need some starting pitching there. They have to address that rotation. But appreciate you guys joining us. Let's go ahead and flip over to X and just see if anything else is happening at the moment. One bit of news anyway is that the Nationals win the draft lottery. A little bit disappointing if you're a Rangers fan. I know we get quite a few Rangers supporters here since I am based in Texas. So the Rangers did lose 4 spots in draft position, I believe. 4 or 5. I believe they were slotted for 7th going into the lottery. They ended up getting 12th. Yikes, is the way I would put it. They did have good luck, though, in the draft lottery a few years ago, bringing in Wyatt Langford. So, you win some, you lose some, I suppose, there. Let's go ahead and scroll down here. Red Sox preparing an offer for Corbin Burnes. Let's see. The Red Sox should be right there. The Orioles should be right there. The Blue Jays should all be right there. Christian Walker is getting close with the Yankees. All righty. Getting the free deal done solves their rotation issues. Bringing in Christian Walker would be a great piece for them as well. Wow. This from Ken Rosenthal. The piece that the Guardians just acquired from the Blue Jays, Spencer Horwitz, in the deal for Jimenez, is going to be flipped to the Pittsburgh Pirates. What a nice trade here for the Pirates, a team that is desperate for some offense. Gets a nice piece here in Horwitz. This is looking pretty good here. If I'm the Pirates, this is the type of move I'm looking for. Controllable piece that has some offensive upside. Now I like this move even more for the Guardians because I'm curious what they're going to get back. I'm sure the Guardians are going to get back some more pitching. They always seem to get great pitching. They needed to get some offense, though. I thought Horwitz would have been a nice piece for them. But if they like what they're getting in pitching return from the Pirates, something to consider here. I do like this piece, though, for Pittsburgh. They needed offense. I thought the best piece that Pittsburgh was going to get this offseason, ideally, was going to be a guy like Max Kepler. To me, doesn't exactly move the needle. Gets you a league average player for me at this point, unless he's able to switch it up a little, or unless he's able to regain some of that momentum he had it when he was younger with the Twins. But for me, Horwitz is better than what they were probably expecting coming into this offseason. Really like that idea here for Pittsburgh, jumping up on an opportunity here on a player you might not have thought was available from the Blue Jays. He gets flipped in the Jimenez deal, and then you're just like, hey, Cleveland, I know you just got him, but what would it take to get him onto our roster? They hadn't exactly been sold on it yet. They hadn't fit him into any lineups. He hadn't even worn the uniform yet. So I really like this idea here. Your Cardinals got the 5th pick, yes. draft lottery information there. Let's see if there's any news on the return. Josh Hartle, Pittsburgh's number 17 prospect, going to Cleveland. There are more players involved in this deal too. I was going to say there had to be more players involved in this deal for it to be the number 17 piece going back the other way. We'll see what the rest of the pieces are here. Let's go ahead and flip over to MLB trade rumors. This is kind of what we were hoping for Monday night, but luckily for us, it's finally happening at least now. I'm curious to see what the number is the Red Sox are going to put in front of Corbin Burnes. I would say it's probably in the 7 to 8 year range. If I had to guess, it would probably be in that $240 million range. Cardinals are getting a meeting with Roki. Yes, they are. Mariners are as well. Padres, I believe, are going to be getting one. The Rangers already have one scheduled. The Dodgers, of course, will have one. The Cubs are said to have a meeting. They're going to do their due diligence. They don't have to rush this. It's going to be until after the 15th of January when he finally does sign on the dotted line. So there's plenty of time to get this one done. It's not exactly an urgent rush to get the meeting done. You want to have a good meeting. That's the most important thing. You want to leave a good impression, and you don't want to be the last one to present, I don't think. So we'll see what it is. Luis, we got some news here. Let me see what it is. Luis Ortiz, Michael Kennedy, and Hartle from the Pirates go to the Guardians in the Horowitz deal. What a nice trade here for the Guardians. 2 back-to-back nice deals here by the Guardians. They have to do a great job in trades anyway. They don't have a whole lot of financial flexibility when it comes to being able to make major league additions, but I really like this deal on both deals here for the Guardians. They get out of the money on Jimenez. They get a good piece in return and a prospect. And then you turn it into 3 other pieces, a couple of them that are going to help you at the major league level this year. Way to go, Guardians. Exactly right, Sarah. Really like this deal for Cleveland. See if they have any more updates real quick as this trade is still coming through. I like this tweet here from Anthony Kastrovitz. Can't wait to see who they turn around and trade these guys for. Remember, they just acquired Horowitz in the deal with the Blue Jays. You know, he's making a little bit of fun of that, but I think they're going to hold on to a couple of these pieces. They could, of course, turn around and flip them for other pieces, but I like this deal, both of them, for the Guardians here. In case you guys are just joining us, it is quite a few different moves we had today. Andres Jimenez goes from the Guardians to the Blue Jays in a trade that includes Spencer Horowitz going back to the Guardians. Now, just breaking at the moment is Spencer Horowitz is being flipped by the Guardians on his way to the Pirates, who get a very nice addition to their offense. Really like that piece. And then the Guardians get back 3 nice pieces there as well. So like this trade for both sides, Pirates and Guardians. Don't necessarily like it as much for the Blue Jays, though. I think they missed an opportunity here if they were going to do something like this. I thought the better solution would possibly be to get this return here from the Pirates. But I guess they just like Jimenez. They want to try to push for the pennant this year, and they're trying to save their jobs. I guess they're just trying to win a postseason series this year, and they're kind of sacrificing the future a little bit to do it. So that's kind of my only issue with it from the Blue Jays' perspective. Bigger news is that the Yankees finally move on from Juan Soto, getting their first big deal under their belt with Max Fried. 8 years, $218 million. You can check out our short video that we posted earlier on this afternoon, only 15 seconds. So if you guys want to hit that like on that video, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Another deal that went down, the Texas Rangers, after the Fried deal was done, they went ahead and got Nathan Eovaldi, 3 years, $75 million. So there's very few starting pitchers left on the open market, and there's only a few on the trade market that are even close to the level of Eovaldi. So teams are starting to, lose in this game of musical chairs. Teams like the Orioles, the Red Sox, Blue Jays are going to have to start picking their guys. Mets are still going to add another starter. Rangers are said to still be looking for another guy in that $10 to $12 million range. We'll see where the rest of the starting pitching market goes, but it's starting to pass some of these teams by, and they're going to have to act quickly. Let's see here. Nothing else breaking there at the moment, but wow, what a flurry of activity here today. Hopefully tomorrow we'll see even more activity, the last day of the winter meetings. Usually you get a hefty amount of deals. I'm sure we'll get the Soto press conference at some point this week. Flaherty is the only other option besides Manaea. For me, it kind of goes, Burns is the number one on the free agent market right now as far as starting pitchers. Manaea probably as number two. Flaherty would be three for me. I would trust Manaea a little bit more. I think he really developed this past year, found something that works for him, and I think his career is going to take off in the next few years. Then you get Pivetta as probably the number four. Heaney is probably the number five as far as starting pitchers that are on the free agent market. But, say the Mets take one of those guys. Let's just go ahead and say Manaea ends up going back there. Just go ahead and pencil him in there. Say the Red Sox end up being the team that gets Burns. Say Heaney ends up going back to Texas for, say, 2 years at $24, $25 million. Say Pivetta goes back to Boston as they were looking to bring back two starting pitchers this offseason. Say that he goes there for, say, 2 years, $45 million. Flaherty is probably the last guy left on the market. Maybe he goes back to the Orioles, but he didn't work great there the last time. Say he ends up in Toronto. That's the market. There's nobody else for the Orioles to go out there and get. They're left holding the bag once again with money to spend, but with nobody willing to accept their offer. And then they'd probably have to go the trade route, go after a Garrett Crochet, maybe a Framber Valdez trade. I think that's almost impossible, though. But I'm really starting to worry about the Orioles and their ability to field a starting rotation. Their starting pitchers have not exactly worked out as well as they had hoped. They flipped a few of them in the a few of their pieces anyway to the White Sox. I'm trying to remember what the trade was. Drawing a blank at the moment. It was DL Hall and a couple of the pieces that were traded. Who am I thinking of? Anyway, but the point is that none of these pieces really worked out as well as they had hoped, and I'm wondering where the Orioles are going to go if they miss out on Burns, because that's a big problem for me if I'm a fan of the Orioles. They have to get something done. Cardinals want to trade Matz. I think we should trade Fetty as well. I think they should start looking at trading all of their veterans that they can. I'm not saying a complete fire sale, but I'm saying anybody who's blocking time for a younger player taking their spot, they need to move him on. So, for instance, Arenado is blocking some of their younger prospects from playing every day. He needs to go. Wilson Contreras, I don't think is going to be able to be moved, so he's locked in there at first base. But in the starting rotation, moving on from Matz, allowing some of their younger guys to get some experience at the major league level would be a good option. Fetty had a good start to the year with the White Sox. Of course, things didn't work out quite as well with the Cardinals, but he's on a cheap contract, and he showed that he has the ability to perform. So somebody looking for a back of the into the rotation starter. I'm not saying he's a back end starter, but right now, but other teams might view him as such because they don't necessarily trust him in a postseason start. But for me, he's still got great value on this market. Really cheap contract. He'd give you some durable innings during the regular season at the very least. So easily worth the deal that he's on. If the Cardinals decided to move him, they should be able to get a decent return as well. Other trade targets out there on the open market. Garrett Crochet, we mentioned. Jordan Montgomery of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then you're looking at some of the guys from the Mariners, the back-end guys. Luis Castillo's been mentioned as a name that's out there. Houston says they're willing to talk about everybody. I don't necessarily buy that. The Miami Marlins are looking to move Jesus Luzardo, who did not look good last year. The rest of the rotation was injured as well. So there are options out there on the trade market, but there's not a whole lot of great ones. And I wonder, which of these teams is going to lose in this game of musical chairs. Let's go ahead and update our Twitter X feed, whatever you want to call it here, see if anything else is happening. Dylan Cease might be on the trade market as well. I did see that headline earlier this afternoon. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for the Padres to quickly turn around and flip one of their important pieces that they just added via trade. Think back to Juan Soto. They invested all that money and capital and prospects into bringing in Juan Soto, and then turned around and flipped him for a great package in return. You think of the first time A.J. Preller really went after winter meetings, bringing in the Upton brothers and trading for Kimbrel all those types of deals. They ended up offloading a bunch of those salaries and were able to turn them into some decent prospects in return, and kind of pivot their rotation, pivot their roster, accordingly. They've done that with multiple pieces in the past, and this might be the next iteration of that. Cease would be a great pick, great fit on a lot of teams out there. But say the Orioles turn around and are like, hey, now that we don't necessarily have to pay premium prices to the White Sox, what will it take to get Dylan Cease from the San Diego Padres? So I could see that happening more likely to me than Framber Valdez. I think Valdez has a good chance of being re-signed by Houston. They're trying to say, they're trying to spin a good yarn out there in Houston right now, is that they're willing to do pretty much anything. Go up, down, sell, buy, trade Presley, bring in additional pieces, Christian Walker, whatever it might be. But for me, the proof is in the pudding. They don't really go past 5 years. They don't really spend at the top of the market for even their own guys. And so they tend to miss on guys that, hit the open market that are their own players. George Springer, Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, Carlos Correa, among others that have left in free agency. Alex Bregman is the next guy in that line that could be out the door. So something to kind of keep an eye on. We'll be live with you guys for a little bit longer here tonight, just seeing if anything else is breaking. I'm wondering if that Christian Walker deal becomes official here tonight. Remember, with the winter meetings, Tuesdays usually are the action days along with Wednesdays. So that's what I'm hoping for. We got the big deal out of the way early on at the winter meetings Sunday night after the Hall of Fame announcement that kind of set the industry back a little bit, let them kind of digest the news. And then here we are, 2 days later now, and we're finally getting some of that logjam cleared up. The corner outfield market I'd expect to start moving again. Once we start seeing these relievers come off the board, they will fly. So maybe we'll start seeing some relief pitchers come off the board tonight or tomorrow. That's what I'm hoping for. The trade of Garrett Crochet, I think, is going to reach its pinnacle tomorrow as well, maybe even late tonight. Red Sox were said to be one of those teams in there. There's no shortage of teams interested, though. Pretty much everybody has touched base at one point or another as far as what it would take to bring in Garrett Crochet. I think it's finally time that the White Sox move on from him and get the price that they want via trade. Let us know in the comments section what pieces you would like to trade for on the open market right now. What pieces would you like to sign off of the free agency list? Who's the underrated free agent that you're keeping an eye on? Our new hitting coach is working with Walker and Gorman, so I'm encouraged. I agree there. I do like Walker's ability. He just needs to get some confidence at the major league level. John Trevino, you say the Rangers are looking for a starting pitcher in the $10 to $11 million range, but I wonder if the number could go up due to no stake tax. That doesn't necessarily affect them as far as the budget that they're going to have on that pitcher. The chances of this pitcher might sign for that $10 or $11 million, sure, that could be a reason why they might agree to the 10 here, or the 10 versus the 10 in, say, like California or New York or something like that. But it's not going to be the reason why they pick a destination. They're going to pick it because total value is a little higher, whatever the case may be. But Rangers are looking for another starting pitcher. I'm just not sure if they're going to go the reclamation project route, which is what the local media is saying that they might turn their attention to. Kyle Gibson was a decent pitcher in St. Louis last year. Yeah, somebody like that, somebody who's a low-cost option, in that $7 to $10 million range or even less if it's a guy coming off of an injury. Think of all the good, successful one-year, $4 million contracts that have been signed over the last 5 or 10 years. Think of all the 3-year, $30 million contracts the Texas Rangers have had great success with. Think of the Kyle Gibsons, the Mike Miners, the Lance Lynn's of the world. Those deals all worked out really well in the Rangers' favor. I think they could do something very similar here. I think Heaney's probably above that 3-year, 30, but I think if you get him for 2 for 25, you could probably get the deal done there if you're looking for a little bit more higher-end piece coming in. There is some trade conversations around John Gray right now. If you're a Rangers fan, that's is good news and bad news. One, it's good because that means you got some rotational depth, and it means you're trying to save a little bit of money to where you're probably going to spend it elsewhere. It's not just offloading a salary to get prospects back and leave it at that. They're going to try to invest that money somewhere else. It sounds like John Gray could be headed toward the bullpen if things shape up the way the Rangers are hoping for that. But $13 million is really expensive for a closer, even in today's baseball. But, if he's able to hold it down, which he's shown the ability to do, he could be a great ninth-inning guy for you. But for a guy who's never done it before, that might be a little bit risky. He's a year away from free agency as well. He probably wants to keep his value high. He's a great Ranger, really likes playing in Texas. Absolute fantastic human being off the field. If you're looking for one of the greatest baseball players ever off the field, look at Jon Gray. I'm just going to ask you to Google what he's been doing in the community for Texas. Basically, what he's been doing his entire career. It's off the charts, the level of compassion that man has. So, whoever does trade for him, if a team is looking for a starting pitcher on a one-year deal when they don't necessarily want to go at the top level of the market or pay the price for a Crochet, maybe a guy like Jon Gray could be a nice piece out there. But he has had his name dangled out there as a possible trade candidate. I'm sure the Rangers would do right by him by getting him to a destination he would prefer to go to. But $13 million, say you offload that salary, that's $13 million. You could probably split between two different players to go into your bullpen. Sign a couple of guys for 2 years, $16 million. That's $8 million per. It only eats up an extra $3 million of what you were expecting to spend. Now you've addressed your bullpen a couple of pieces, and now you can have a little extra to spend on an Andrew Heaney, and then you got a little bit extra left for a bat. So there is a lot of different avenues the Rangers can go this offseason. Jon Gray being available is just one of many. Mariners are way too quiet. It's Jerry Dipoto. Mariners are going to have to trade for somebody at this point. They might sign somebody, but, it's trader Jerry Dipoto. They like to say it's trader Jerry Jones down here in Texas with the Dallas Cowboys, but, Jerry Dipoto is the guy that does the most transactions in all of Major League Baseball. He'll shuffle up his roster to shake things up and see what works a little bit better. Two similar prospects on one team versus his two similar prospects. Flip them around, see if somebody else catches fire with a different instructor. See if you can get lucky. And he's gotten lucky with a few of those trades. But he has been very quiet. They need some hitting. But they are very cheap in free agency. I would expect them to go usually more the trade route. That's why I think Bellinger is a great fit for them along with the New York Yankees. It's just a matter of how much the Cubs are willing to eat and what it would take to get him in return. Let's go ahead and check in one more time, see if anything else is breaking at the moment. Nothing yet there. Let's go ahead and flip over to MLB trade rumors. Nothing there. Alrighty, so the news tonight anyway that we're kind of waiting for is going to be Burns, it's going to be Walker, it's going to be some of those corner outfielders, Hernandez and Santander. I think one of those guys probably signs tomorrow at the very latest. Crochet, I think, gets moved. Those are the headlines we're going to keep an eye out for over the next 24 hours. Let us know in the comments section what move you're hoping for. Rangers fans, what move are you hoping they add as far as a bat? I know it's starting pitcher. We've discussed quite a bit. Relievers are a little bit more mercurial. Year in, year out, who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. One year you might be the greatest thing since sliced bread in the bullpen. The next year you have a 7.5 ERA and you only make 30 appearances. Injuries, whatever the case may be. So it's, bullpen pieces that are consistently excellent year after year are those very rare cases that get $15 to $20 million contracts. Ryan Presley has been that up until this most recent year where they kind of upset the apple cart by bringing in Josh Hader. But, I'm curious to see, where these relievers go that are on the open market. And then the trade market, I think, is really going to take off thereafter. Doval, Presley, Williams, Helsley. To a certain extent, there's some belief that Emmanuel Clase could be available as well. Tanner Scott on the free agent market is out there. A lot of names to consider. Kirby Yates as well. David Robertson has some closing experience. There's a lot of arms out there, and yet there's more via trade that could become available. So let us know in the comments section what moves you're looking forward to, what moves you think are the greatest we've seen so far. To me, I really like the move that the Guardians have done now, flipping Jimenez, getting back a prospect in that deal, and then flipping Horowitz in that deal for 3 other pieces. So really liked what the Guardians have done so far. I do like the Mets, of course, bringing in Juan Soto. I think that elevates their ceiling. I think that puts them clearly in the top 3 of the NL. Dodgers, I think, are still number 1. I think that the Mets and the Phillies are right there, 2-3. Braves 4, Padres 5. Maybe Helsley stays with the Cardinals. I think that would be a mistake for him to be kept until the deadline, Sarah. This is a guy who has up and down performance in his past, injuries as well. The market is never going to be higher from across the industry than it is right now for, relief pitchers. Right now, you're going to have all 30 teams looking for starting pitchers. They're looking for relievers. They're looking to improve their rosters. All those kinds of things. But then you get to the trade deadline, and it's going to be a half of the league that's interested in some relievers. Sure, the price might be a little bit higher, but then you're also worried about Does he regress a little bit? Is he injured at the time the trade deadline happens? Can you even recoup any of the value out of him? This is going to be a struggling year for the Cardinals in certain respects. Maybe they catch lightning in a bottle like the Brewers did this year with all their young pieces basically clicking and making it work. But the Guardians are trying to figure out who's going to be long-term solutions for them at all kinds of different spots in their lineup. And to have Helsley back there, who could fetch you a pretty penny via trade right now, and risk that by allowing him to go to the trade deadline, I think that's a little bit of an unnecessary risk that they should avoid right now. Maybe you get an extra top 30 prospect out of it, maybe, but I think that's a far bigger question, and I think the price right now is already really high for some of those top relievers. Helsley right now would qualify as probably one of the top 5 relievers available both via free agency or trade. So that's why I think it'd be a little bit foolhardy for them to take him into the start of next season. I think they should be looking for a trade. They're doing the right thing, posturing like they don't need to trade him. I get all of that. But for me, I think it'd be a mistake to hold on to him. Red Sox Nation is going to flip if Burns goes to the Jays or Giants. We did talk a little bit yesterday about how well the Giants have done this offseason. Most notably, their addition of Willy Adames. Really like that addition for them. Solves a big issue in their lineup, but they're not done. They've been negotiating with Corbin Burns as their number one priority since the beginning of the offseason, and they've been acting like it. They want to address that rotation. They want to address first base as well, and possibly a reliever. But I really like what the Giants have done. They're going to be stiff competition. If he goes to the Jays, that would be incredible. Red Sox Nation is going to flip, sure, but I think Orioles Nation would flip even more if he went out west, and then you're left with, at best, Sean Manaea, I guess. I think he would probably take the money from the Orioles, but I think if he's the best option left, I think the Red Sox probably snake that one. But I really like the addition of Willy Adames out there by San Francisco. I think that's going to go down as one of the best additions of this winter meetings, or pre-winter meetings anyway. Let's go ahead and update one more time just to see if there's anything else. Doesn't look like it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up for this evening. We'll be live for you guys again at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. If there is any other big news, we'll be sure to update you tonight as well. So, just because we're logging off tonight doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. If we get a signing of Christian Walker, I'll probably put out a short little video. If we get something bigger like a Garrett Crochet trade, I'm probably going to go live. Corbin Burns signs, I'd probably go live. So, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed we've gained like 20 subscribers in the last day or two alone. That's incredible. So thank you guys for joining us here at the Upside. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really do appreciate it. It really does help. The more you guys watch and interact with our channel, comment on our short videos. I noticed we had a few people comment on the videos we made earlier on this evening. It was incredible, the response that you guys are having for us. So, appreciate all you guys. Mark, specifically, you've been really helpful, and appreciate your words of encouragement. Ethan, I know you appreciate the channel as well, so thank you as well. Saw your comment as well. I think I responded to it as well. But Sarah, thank you for joining us once again. Hopefully your Cardinals, get things working the way they need to, and it's only a one-year rebuild for you. But I'm just hoping for a crazy day of transactions, either, tonight. Hopefully, we get something crazy and I have to do an emergency live again. But I'm hoping for a really successful day of transactions tomorrow at the winter meetings. We're going to do what we did on Monday. We're going to do a 9 a.m. live. We're going to do a 9 a.m. live, a 1 p.m. live, and another one around 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And if anything else breaks, we'll be sure to go live again as well. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys later on tonight, or at the very latest, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Y'all have a good one.